She's a performance master and speaking strategist who transforms high-stakes presentations into unforgettable theatrical experiences, drawing from 2 decades, although you'd never know it, 2 decades of corporate leadership and formal theatre training. She's working with visionary founders, global executives, and influential voicers she helps them to craft moments that transcend traditional keynotes. I love this. She's a founder of the Illuminated Story Method. She merges Broadway-level creativity with corporate precision, and she helps leaders not just be heard, but truly be unforgettable. Based in Melbourne and about 32 degrees warmer than I am right now, serving clients globally, she's worked with CEOs, best-selling authors, tech innovators, and she helps create presentations that move markets and shape industries. Welcome to the Leadership That Sells podcast, where we help you lead first and sell more. High-performing sales teams need great sales leaders. If a sales manager gets the most out of the sellers who work for them, they hit their targets on time, every time, and they have a no-stress life as they do it. Happy teams perform better. But it is so rare that a great seller is also a great manager, right? Most of them just never get the support or guidance, so they make it up, or worse, they copy bad habits. Sales leaders need the practical skills to build and lead their teams in a way that fits their crazy schedules. That's why we built this Leadership That Sells playbook course. Check it out at the Practical Leadership Academy. Carmen Sederino, thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Paul, especially after that amazing introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, what did I miss? To be here. What did I miss?
What did you miss? Wow. Goodness, you were very thorough in your introduction. I think that probably what the introduction doesn't tell your listeners, which they might find intriguing, is that I'm actually an introvert and was a very, very shy child, even though by 8 years of age, I ended up on local stages in theatrical productions, and my teachers would often say to my parents that they could not believe that the very shy child at the back of the classroom who just did her work and tried her best was up on stage with this big voice and big gestures, entertaining the whole school.
That's marvelous. I mean, I did lots of Amdram in university and school and stuff like that. So I love treading the boards and singing and dancing, or sinning and dancing, as you call it. But I'm not an introvert, although actually kind of borderline sometimes. Sometimes I feel kind of borderline. And I'm not even convinced the introvert or extrovert thing is a genuine tension in people. It's that energy source, you know? But yeah. How do you do this then? How, if you are someone, let's go with the flow of the introversy, you get your energy from those moments alone, which is kind of the definition. What?
Well, yes, I know, very confusing. I would say that, what did a friend once described me as a classic introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. I forget which way he said it. But basically, yes, I do need some alone time and some time to recharge, but I absolutely still do get energy from being around people, which is why I led teams for so many years in my corporate career, because as I'm sure many of the listeners that are leaders out there know, it does take a lot of your time, and it certainly takes a lot of your energy to lead teams and lead teams well. So yeah, it was a big shock. Even my mum, I'll always remember, she said the first time I went up on stage, she was convinced there was no way I was getting up on there, because I was happy to go to rehearsals and learn, but she thought when the actual performance happened, she just thought that she'd have to catch me side of the stage because I'd be running off. But I didn't. I was up there smiling and waving and having a ball. And I think part of that is actually that as an actor, there's many actors in the world that are quite introverted. You're playing another character. So you're being someone else out there. And if I flip to public speaking for a moment, and as a leader, you absolutely have to be able to speak out to groups of people, whether it be only a few in a meeting room or big town halls that you might be running, depending on the size of your organization. When it comes to speaking in those forums, to be able to, for me, be able to sort of put on a different persona was very helpful. And when I say different persona, if I can dive into that for a minute, Paul.
Please.
Because everyone listening, I'm sure you're thinking, I need to be authentic. I'm not playing a character. I'm me up there. And you absolutely are. You are you up there. When you think about you in your life, you probably have a range that you play within. So there might be you who's talking to the little puppy or the little baby. And when you do that, you might say, oh, aren't you cute? And even like big, tall men with deep voices might make their voice a little bit higher and a bit softer and smile. And then if you're at the football or the soccer or whatever, sporting event you might be into, you might use a big voice and be yelling and screaming at the umpires and cheering your team on and using big hand gestures. So each one of you has range with your voice, with your body language, and you can tap into that when you're the leader standing up in front of people. Because when you're doing that, you need to be believable. You need to have your people think that you know where you want them to head. You believe in what it is you're talking to them about, and unwavering. So that's where I think that confidence piece comes in, where you're believable as the leader because of how you can hold yourself in front of those groups of people.
I think that then leads to the trust piece, because if you're believable, they trust what you're saying. And if they trust what you're saying, they trust that you have their best interests at heart, which speaks to my core, which is the service, the servant leadership thing. You can't be of service to someone if they don't believe that you actually care.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And that's why, sorry about my voice, it can't just be bravado when you're up there. So yes, there are skills you can learn to make sure that you do come across as the leader you are and you look confident. And the 3 pillars I help clients create is that you are clear, confident, compelling anytime that you speak. And you need to back that up. So you need to have the substance behind you and follow through on what you're saying to develop that trust you were talking about, because people very quickly see through a leader who can speak well but doesn't actually back up anything that they're saying in the day-to-day working life.
I've got 2. You're triggering me here. There's a bit of trigger warning, right? So there's 2 things that jump out at me and stuff that I've failed at miserably, and I have a litany of disasters in my leadership and management career, and I continually apologize in this show to everybody who's ever worked for me, whose life I just completely shat on as I was learning how to do this. So again, if you're one of those poor sods, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I thank you for your victimness and allowing me to get better. I had a good friend who was actually working for me, and after a presentation to us as town hall on the part of the business I was running, came up to me and he said, "What the hell was that? What was that?" And there's people in the group who were going, "Oh yeah, he was fine because I'm a good speaker." But he came up and said, "What was that? What was that? Absolute rubbish. Where are you? You don't believe what you're talking about." Because he was close enough to me. We worked together long enough. He said, "Don't believe what you're talking about. You've no passion. You've no nothing." And the other side of that, the extension of that was, I was working in a team. We weren't, as a leadership team, weren't able to deliver what we were saying we were going to deliver. We had these plans, had these things, but the parent was saying, no, after the fact. So we would now start, shape, build, put things in play, and then get shut down. So it just made us, individually, this is what happened to me, is individually it was like, yay, let's go, it's so good to work here, yippee, whoa, clappity clap, oh no, go team. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's hard.
Or worse.
And were you in a position where you had to do that, or did you obviously didn't believe in what you were saying?
It was very hard to try and get people motivated to deliver something that was utterly transient and I didn't believe in,
Yes.
That's the hard bit. That's the hard bit. So if you don't believe, you don't have to want to buy what you're selling, but but you have to believe it's worthwhile to someone. You have to believe that what you're doing, you're going in the right direction. And at that point, I didn't. So you have to say that clear, the confidence, and the compelling piece has to be backed up with the credible capability to deliver what you're talking about. There's more C's,
That's right.
credible capability. So 5 C's. Okay. So you've got a method.
Yes.
You've worked with this for a while. I mean, you built this Illuminated Story trademark method. And it's this idea of taking the theatrical, which I love, with business excellence, which I love. Okay, so this is why I'm really enjoying talking to you. What do you think is the biggest mistake most leaders make when they're delivering something high stakes, a high stake presentation, so a big old town hall after a restructure, or announcing an M&A, or announcing a bunch of redundancies, or a sign of 5,000 customers, or one of those? What's those big things? Where do they screw up? What's the biggest mistake?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes is winging it. I can't tell you how many people say to me, look, to be honest, I'm much better off the cuff. When I rehearse, I'm far worse. And my advice to them normally is that you haven't rehearsed enough. Think about if you decided to play golf, for instance, and you started playing with your friends and, you got pretty good. You're not bad at golf. And so you think, I'm going to go get some lessons because I'm into this. I think I'm not too bad at this now. And you go and get your lessons and it feels awful. They're telling you to stand differently, do things differently, and your game starts going backwards for a period of time. There's 2 types of people at that point. So there's the ones that dig in and really practice what the expert's been telling them, and their game continues to grow and then soars. And then there's the person that's like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm just going to go back to the way I was playing before. That felt much more comfortable, and they'll just stay the same. So it will feel more comfortable for certain people to just speak off the cuff. It doesn't mean that you're going to be better. It doesn't mean that you're doing the best job you could, because if you plan it and really think about what do the people in front of you need to hear from you, and how is the best way to structure that message so you're going to get the best out of them moving forward, whether it's a good message or a bad message. And then after you've thought through that content piece and your audience piece, I would call it, then it's practicing and potentially even just filming yourself on your phone, to be honest, to see what your body and voice is doing that you might not realize is happening because you can't see yourself.
Yeah.
So yes, the biggest mistake I would say is winging it. And there's a word I'm going to talk about that I see leaders use often that can really annoy the people listening to it. And the word is but. Sometimes, even if it's a positive end of year breakup message and the company's done well, I often hear CEOs start with, you've done this well, you've done that well, and they build everyone up and they say it's been great, da, 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 da. And then there's, but you have to work harder and we have to do better and we have to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As soon as you say the word but, all of the good work you've just done goes out the window, and the only thing that is remembered is anything that comes past that word. So that is a very small but very important word that I would say is the second biggest mistake that most people make.
That is marvelous. Winging it and saying but. I love that. I mean, the winging
I
it
could say death by PowerPoint, but that's been said. I think everyone knows that already.
Yeah, well, everyone knows it, but not everybody follows it,
Exactly.
I did a lot of Amdram, and we had a wonderful director there. They called it babysitting because we had a semi-professional team doing the lights, and we hired all the good stuff and went on to a professional theatre. It was really, really high quality stuff. So, 6, 7 shows in a 800-person theatre just in the outskirts of London. It's a fabulous experience. And
that was when you were doing theatre, was it? Did you say?
Yeah,
yes.
That was that. That was just amateur dramatics. Right? So it was a musical theatre I did, so singing, dancing, that sort of stuff. But she said that
and
amateurs.
that's invaluable. Sorry, you
She's,
go. Keep going.
she said that amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until it can't go wrong. And I
I
love
love
that.
that saying.
And she said the number, and I've used this for years as well, is the number 7. You need to practice something at least 7 times, right? Preferably in the context that you're going to be delivering it. So you can practice your speech or whatever it is. I've delivered however many of these things. You just practice your
Well,
speech, just reading it
people.
to yourself, and then again, and then
Mm,
again. Then you stand up. Then you're in front of the mirror. Then you're in front of your mum and your dad, or you're videoing it, or whatever it is, as close to the real thing as possible. But you said they
absolutely.
don't practice enough. Totally. 7 seems to be the magic number.
Yes. Well, clients will say to me, often they'll still say to me, even though he is no longer with us, I want to be as good as Steve Jobs. I want to be
Yeah.
as good as Steve Jobs. And little do they know that Steve Jobs would rehearse like a theatre actor for at least 3 months before his big keynote
Yeah.
shows, I will call them.
Yeah. That's what they are.
And
It is
and
theatre.
yeah,
It is theatre. You're
it's a
capturing
show.
somebody's passion, emotion. It's all that.
Exactly. And that's why he was so good. Like a lot of people just think you're born a great speaker. You're not born a great speaker. It's a skill that you can learn. And if you're willing to put in the time and get the right support, then you can absolutely be that good. And he did, to a certain extent, blend theatrical elements with traditional keynote speaking, which is exactly the Illuminated Story Method, where we help thought leaders like CEOs really elevate to another level. Because how many conferences have you been to, and no doubt your listeners have been to, where you actually just want to fall asleep because the the speakers are okay, they're good, they're confident, but they're not blowing you away. It's not an exceptional experience, and very few of them are going to be remembered post that day.
You've got the method. We want to practice like a professional. We don't want to live the same day for 20 years because we've given up, right? That's what happens, right? You say, oh, I'm good enough. Okay, if you're good enough, you're never going to get better. So you're going to live the same day for the next 20 years. And I love the but piece. It reminds me of the shit sandwich. That
Yeah.
feedback process. So
Yes.
you're really good, Carmen, but this is a
But
bit crap. But you're still a nice
yeah,
person. So you've got the 2 bits of
yeah,
bread and the shit in the middle. Nobody remembers the 2 bits of bread. And the next
no.
time you tell them, hey, Carmen, good job on that, you're sitting there going, and where's the but?
But yeah.
But this is crap. You know, the other side of that really superpower word I love is because. You should
Mm,
use because a lot. This is what we're doing because. And you've
let's give
justified
us
it
a
and then it
reason.
builds it. You're great at this because, and I'm building this up. Anyway, the method. Give us a free view. How do we do this? What's the method? What is the core, the heart of this masterclass you do on high stakes presentations?
Well, in terms of a process, the first thing that we would do with a client who really wants to do this properly, they want to do their unforgettable show, is deep dive with them and really understand exactly what outcomes they're wanting, exactly who they're talking to, obviously the setting in which they're able to do it. And we'll create a blueprint for them of basically a map of exactly what they could do, what's possible for their keynote show. Now, that ranges big time because it really depends on all of the things I've just described as to what we could create. If we were going really big, then as you were talking about with the amateur theatre that you did, lighting can make a really big difference to the atmosphere that you can create for your audience. Sound can make a huge difference to the atmosphere that you can create. Um, and multimedia, so not PowerPoint, but multimedia effects, cinematic multimedia effects can also make a huge difference to the experience. So it's creating moments, creating experiences. Now, we can go really big with that, or we can pare it right back. So if you think of theatre, there's big, musical theatre that are spectacles that have all sorts of, lighting and sound and special effects going on. And then you can have plays that are very minimalistic with very little costuming, sets. It's the actors on stage that are bringing stories to life that hook people in and make it unforgettable. So the Illuminated Story Method really, because we talk about the fact that it's business precision mixed with theatrical elements, the business precision part is really making sure we're not creating a spectacle for the sake of creating a spectacle. We're creating what is required to get you the outcomes that you're wanting. And I know you said that a lot of your audience are sales leaders or leaders. Leaders in general need to be able to sell, don't they? Because sometimes you are actually selling a product or a service, but every day you're selling a mission or a vision or a new direction. Yeah, absolutely. So, what is it? I think presentations are the same. Whenever you speak, you're selling something, whether it's a tangible thing or not. So what is it that you're selling? What is it that you want the audience to do, think, feel at the end of that talk? And let's create the right show for you to be able to achieve that in the best way possible.
That's marvelous. I love it. Okay. Would you think, if you work with lots of different sorts of people, what's one quick change you think that anybody could make today to instantly improve the impact of their presentations?
Look, if we're talking corporate workplaces, definitely PowerPoint. I still have, I do a lot of work with corporate groups, and it's the everyday presentation. It's not the big performance that we were just talking about. And I constantly help people pare back their slides and remind them that you are the lead in your message, and any tool, so I call PowerPoint a tool, is the supporting cast. It is only there to support you and add impact to your message. So if you can choose an image over a whole lot of text, that is going to be so much more impactful for you. And yes, it does rely on you having done the work and the rehearsals we were talking about before, because you can no longer use it as your prompt. Well, not in the same way that some people are. It's not your script. It can't be your script anymore. It can still be a prompt because an image can prompt you. You need to know your story behind the image that you're sharing. So that would be the biggest win that most people can make. And I think just it really clicks for people when they remember, I own this message. I'm here for a reason. I'm here to convince people. And what I'll say to so many clients is, you are so much more interesting than your PowerPoint slides. So let us hear from you. We could just print those and read the pack if that's what you want to run with. I would rather hear it from you. And I think there is a culture within corporate businesses now as well, where the business has an expectation that you will provide a pre or post or both reading pack for the board or for the SLT team, senior leadership team. And so often when I'm working with executives, I'll say to them, yes, you do have to still do your pack that has all the copious amounts of information on it and hand that in, because people are reading that. So it's a document, really, and you need to have all the information on the document. And what I recommend is that you then have a pared back version that you're actually going to deliver with, because you need to choose the most important messages from that pack that you absolutely need to know the people in the room have heard and felt by the end of your talk.
So you're delivering a distilled impact rather than the copious detail. I mean, I don't know how many slides I've sat through where there's 200 words in the slide. So you tune out the speaker and you start reading the drivel that's on the slide.
100%. But audience needs to choose. They can't do both. They can't listen to you and read the slide at the same time. So they're going to choose. And the more detailed people in your room are going to read it every time.
Totally. That's been in a board or a financial presentation or something like that. They're going to read it and you're not going to listen to. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know how many times I've sat looking at a picture of some random climber, holding off the side of a cliff, the ubiquitous PowerPoint, right? With
Yeah.
27 bullet points there, thinking, I, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think.
Yeah, the picture doesn't even need to be there because it's not doing anything for the person. Everyone's just reading through the bullet
Totally,
points.
totally, totally. Well,
Yes.
if you could share one message, what would it be? If I gave you 10,000 billboards and you could put one message on it and share it with the world, what would your message be?
Oh, 10,000 billboards. That would be amazing if you could if you could do that
Call
for
me
me.
on this number now.
Look, as a leader, so I worked in corporate for 18 and a half years it was in the one business, and led national and international teams the most of the time that I was there. And so from a leadership point of view, I would say if the billboard said, what if it was you? So, from a leadership perspective, always thinking, what if it was you in one of your team members' shoes? How would you be motivated? How would you feel? What would you want or need from me as the leader? I think just having that perspective can make a huge difference to obviously your empathy and then what happens next and how you get people on board. I'll always remember there was one time I'd been in leadership for a long time by then. I was really focused on what I wanted to do next rather than the team. And I'd asked them to make a relatively big change, and I'd communicated it a couple of times and it still wasn't happening. And I just thought, oh my goodness, like, what do I need to say for these people to just do it the new way? Like, just do it the new way. And I had everyone flying in for a conference, and I had to really take a deep breath and a step back and think, okay, you've got an opportunity where everyone's going to be in the room at once to put yourself in their shoes and empathize with them through the presentation I was going to do to try and get them on board, to then bring them back through and see the vision of how it was actually going to be better for them, not for me, better for them if they decided to take this new direction on board. And it was the best meeting in the end because one of the more senior team members said, oh, okay, this makes so much more sense. It really has been challenging and nerve-wracking, and I'm so glad we get to talk about it as a team. And it just broke everything open. And I asked everyone to just say exactly how they felt and be really, really honest, because as a team, we then needed to figure out how this was going to happen, because it did need to happen. Let's figure out what all the objections are, air them out, and then as a team, figure out how we move forward together. So I'll always remember that. So what if it was you is what I would put on the billboard.
It's this universal desire for self-awareness, isn't it? It's you're not just being aware of yourself, but it's being able to, that empathy, the tactical empathy that you can. It's a wonderful line. It's Robert Burns, I think. He died in about 1796, Scottish poet. Right?
Yes.
Oh, would some power give us the gift to see ourselves as others see us? It would from many a blunder free us and foolish notions. There you go.
Beautiful.
See yourselves as others see you. It's the dream of all. There you go. Wonderful. I love that. What would you recommend? What's your most recommended book or podcast? What do you like suggesting to people?
Oh, there's so many good books out there, but one that does stand out is called Ride of a Lifetime. It was written by Robert Iger, who was the CEO of Disney for about 15 years.
Bob Iger, yes, of course.
Yes, it's an amazing book, very easy to read because there's rich storytelling throughout the whole book. It's not your standard business book that can sometimes be a little bit dry. And there's huge lessons of leadership, empathy throughout that book, as well as innovation and surprising partnerships and being open to new ideas that might seem quite radical at the time. He did quite a few significant partnerships with Steve Jobs, and back then Disney had been frustrated with some of the things that Apple had been doing and vice versa. And he got the relationship back on the table, and they created pretty incredible things. Like Pixar and just streaming services. So I think in the book he talks about how Steve Jobs had this idea of putting content onto devices like the Apple devices, but no one wanted to do it. Everyone was scared of that, which sounds funny now, doesn't it? In the world we live in now. But Robert Iger listened. He actually was maybe one of the first people to actually just sit down and listen and then figure out a way that it was going to benefit both parties moving forward. And incredible things were born out of that. So I loved the book and highly recommend it. And I hope that if you decide to read it and your listeners decide to read it, that you will also enjoy it too and get many great lessons out of it.
Superb. And where can we find you when we need you, Carmen?
You can go to illuminatedstory.com is the website, and Carmen at illuminatedstory.com is the email address. I'm on LinkedIn, so if you just search Carmen Sederino, you'll find me on LinkedIn, and would love to connect with you. And you'll also find me on Facebook and Instagram, but LinkedIn's probably the platform that I play on most regularly and connect with people most often on.
Well, we will put all those details into the notes in this episode as well, so everybody can find you when they need you. All I think it does for me to say is thank you for sharing the story of the story. Carmen Sederino, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me, Paul.